Tired of the same old at business events? Well, this is not the same as last year. The podcast where we blow up the boring and lead the charge into the attendee-first era of business events. I'm Clare, Forestier, a business event MC obsessed with transforming audiences from passive observers into dynamic participants at events. Each week we'll challenge the conventions, share actionable tips, and hear from fellow event rebels who are mastering the engagement game. Imagine your attendees begging for more after your next event. That's the magic of prioritising their experience. Ready to ditch the dull and create corporate events your audiences will rave about? Then you've found your tribe. Join the movement. Welcome to Not the Same as Last Year.
Welcome back to Not the Same as Last Year. And I think it's time now to look at wellness in events. And of course, I couldn't do an episode on this without speaking to possibly the fittest man in events. David T. Stevens has been working in corporate events for around 20 years, and he was always a keen athlete sportsman, and indeed he won the CrossFit Fitness Event Prof 6 times. And as the co-founder of Olympian Meeting and host of the Return on Wellness podcast, David has really made a name for himself in the last 4 years by integrating wellness into B2B events. He's so passionate about it, it is now his full-time job. So I started by asking him how his hobby came to merge with his career in events.
I've put all my eggs in the wellness basket at this point, because I've seen how it impacts people. So when I was still in corporate, we were talking about this idea, and we came back from the pandemic and we did our company kickoff, and we didn't start until 9:30 or 10 every day. We had workouts, a variety of workouts, run clubs, gym opened early, yoga, mindfulness. We had bright, colorful, healthy foods. We had lots of breaks. We had short sessions. I think our latest night was 10 every night. We had 90-minute lunches, 90-minute breakfasts. We did this, and our net promoter score went from an 8.2 to a 9.4. Huge impact. People just ate it up. And that's when the light bulb came on. I was like, there's something to this, because we got to treat people like humans again. Instead of this robotic, up early, get no sleep, show up hungover, feed people crap. And people are just different now. I don't see this as a trend. I see this as an evolution in the industry, because I think attendees, they aren't so anxious to go somewhere anymore. They are calculating if going somewhere is worth the time away from their comforts at home.
And I think that's very interesting that you saw this after COVID. What was the impetus to do that differently?
So I've always been a fan of like fitness at meetings, good food. Like I would always work out before an event, and I would try to, I worked for a large gym conglomerate here in the States a while ago, and that was just part of our culture. Like every meeting started with a workout in the morning. You know, there was semi-professional athlete, bodybuilding people that worked for us, things of that nature that I had to accommodate the menu for, because they were living our brand. So I had always been a fan of that. I didn't really know the science behind it or why it was actually setting people up to learn more at the meetings. But then when the pandemic happened, I had my own experience with mental health, and it brought a new level of awareness to me. At that meeting, we had some okay food. It wasn't the best. And we had some workouts. So it was okay. Like we started it, and I just did it. I didn't really ask anyone. I just said, hey, we're going to have workouts in the morning. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, who's going to say no? Are we still on budget? Yeah, we're still on budget. Okay, great. But that's all we did. I don't want to say it was unintentional, because obviously it takes some intention to set that stuff up, but it was because I wanted to do it. And I knew that it was, there were people that were going to enjoy it.
You need one person really pushing it, I guess.
You need at least an event planner who cares about the attendee experience.
The thing is, most event planners are going to say, I care about the attendee experience. Of course they are, but you get caught up in everything else that's happening, and it ends up being the last thing. You know, I've mentioned, sometimes where food appears in the agenda, it can be much later than possibly we want, but that's because a speaker can't speak till this time and so on. And these decisions are made for budgetary reasons or fitting around speakers. The last person who's been considered there is the attendee. Whereas if we are literally intentionally planning on their experience in everything we do from day one, which is what I would want everybody to do, then you can put all those lovely things in. But a lot of what we're talking about here, which to us feels like a no-brainer, put it in there, do it. It's an add-on for other people, isn't it? It's that, oh my God, we've done nothing for wellness. Okay, we've got a mental health talk and we've got a yoga session. Tick, done. Like everything else, it becomes this tick box.
That makes me wonder, like, what's the planning process like? Like, are you even going through what your objective is for the event? Are you thinking about that at all? Is your objective to make your CEO happy? Or is your objective to train your team? Because if your objective is to train your team, you need to build an event that supports their ability to learn and their ability to remember things and their ability to pay attention. Then you can build that framework that supports that objective instead of the other way around, just letting the executives dictate what they want to do. And the truth of the matter is, this probably isn't going to make me any friends or get me any more LinkedIn followers. That's an EA. That's an admin. That is not an event professional. An event professional is there to put the guardrails up and to protect the objective, not just do whatever the executives want them to do.
I did a whole podcast on the objective because that's the point. And it actually doesn't even matter what your objective is, because your objective could be anything, but ultimately your objective is that your attendee has a blooming amazing time, and then they'll do whatever your objective was, whatever you wanted them to do, because they will feel good when they leave. And they will. I mean, I came home from an event last week and I literally just walked in the door and lay on the floor for about 3 hours. I was completely unable to speak. I was so exhausted, and I had not been anything to do with the organization of that event. I was just wiped out by the noise and the traveling and everything and every night you were going out, and then it was loud in the restaurants because there's millions of people from this event going out. And it was so much. And I'm an extrovert, but I literally could not cope. And I just thought, wow, if you were an introvert, you'd have probably had to be hospitalized after that experience. It was so much. And that's kind of normal for those kind of events, which is like a big, large industry event. How is that sustainable? As a human being, you just think never again. But somehow, like childbirth, you forget it and you go next year. But you know,
that's the big thing, is leaving attendees energized instead of exhausted. We talk about sustainability all the time. That's another thing that Freeman says planners don't care about. This whole wellness thing is just people sustainability. Sustainability is people, planet, profit, the 3 Ps. Wellness is just the people portion of sustainability. And I mean, we're in the hospitality business. We're supposed to be caring for people, yet we run them into the ground with these agendas.
No, and we're really proud when we say it's jam-packed. It's funny, isn't it? That's become like a kind of badge of honor. So you mentioned the Freeman thing. What do you mean by that?
So Freeman put out a report and they basically said, planners don't care about sustainability or wellness when they're planning their events, which it's not entirely untrue, because yeah, they probably don't, because they're not thinking about it. They're just running a million miles an hour and trying to keep up. And especially with the way the market is right now, I can see that perspective. But the difference is the attendees do. And I can't speak to anything that is contradicted the planet sustainability portion of it. But I can tell you from another study from McKinsey, and all the travel, the tourism industry is talking about ecotourism, and that people are trying to travel more sustainably. But the wellness market has hit a $1.8 trillion market cap. That's massive. So sure, planners may not care, but guess what? Your attendees do. And if you want survey results that are in your favor, if you want to be able to raise ticket prices to drive revenue, and that's why I call my podcast Return on Wellness. Nobody gives a crap about wellness if it doesn't impact the bottom line. But if your attendees want it, which clearly based on the open free market they do, then if you're not giving it to them, you're going to see it in your survey results.
If we took away the term, they don't care, because of course maybe they do care, but it has to go low down their list because they've got all this other terrifying stuff hitting them. it's still the same meaning. It's not happening for the attendee. And I guess it could be proven. If you show in your agenda, for example, we're going to start every day at 9:30 and we're going to have all this opportunity for you to do physical exercise beforehand, or your time, or, like, for example, I'm going to one in London next week, which we are near the water. So it'll be, we've put on an opportunity for you to do some open water swimming, or we've done this, or you've done that. If you see that in the agenda when you're deciding whether this is the event you're going to go to, as well as all the content and the great speakers and everything else, you'll be like, whoa, I'm going to hit my whatever goals that week. I'm actually going to be able to do this. This is actually going to not take me out of, most people who are on a healthy eating plan or schedule will be like, oh, well, that week's going to be, that's going to be that's my drop week. I'm going to have to go back and fight it back when I get back in there again at home. You kind of want to feel, no, I can live sustainably and well for myself and see all the stuff I need to do. So it's a win-win, definitely going to that event.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's missing that we're really trying to focus on is the why behind all of this stuff. Like when it comes to the workouts in the morning, there's a reason that I prefer to do a high intensity workout in the morning, because I have understood and learned what it actually does for my brains. It's kind of like monkey brain level stuff in the sense of this is instinctual behavior of our bodies. So we have our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Our sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. Parasympathetic is our baseline. When you trigger your fight or flight mode or your sympathetic nervous system with a high intensity workout, your body and your brain is under stress and literally calculating, am I going to die?
Definitely my workouts. Yeah.
Once your heart rate gets to a certain point, your body, your sympathetic nervous system takes over. What physiologically is happening is your hippocampus is fully lit up. This brain-derived neurotropic factor is dumping into your brain, all these hormones, because your body is saying, what's going on? Am I in danger? I need to learn from this experience so that I know if I'm going to die or not, so I know how to deal with this when I come across it again. Right? Very simple stuff. So when you do that, before you go into sessions, all that stuff, those hormones and brain chemicals and everything else in that part of the brain that was lit up, it lingers. It doesn't just go away immediately. Yeah. It's there. So when you go do this high intensity workout before you do this really critical task that you're going to learn from, you're primed to learn. The study came out of this school in Indiana where they had kids work out with heart rate monitors, and they worked out in certain target heart rate zones to engage that sympathetic nervous system. Their test scores went through the roof because they were benefiting from that residual after effect of all those hormones just getting dumped into their brains. This is, as planners, we are stacking the deck for people to fill out incredible surveys by doing this for them. So that's why I talk about a wellness first approach to events, because when we take care of people, inevitably they're going to learn more.
I find it so interesting. Like, that the speakers turn up and go, oh God, I haven't got this slot, have I? Because they absolutely know that that's the slot when everybody's going to have had a long, boring day sitting down, very few breaks, and then they're going to be the one before lunch and everybody's going to be like, feed me now. You're like, we even know all this, and yet we still don't apply it. We just put some poor sod there and say, God, good luck with that. We've put you there because you're the most energetic. And it's like, but we didn't need to do that. We could have made them have a break beforehand and given them an outdoor space. And even if we couldn't give them exercise at the beginning of the day, we could do all these other little incremental things, couldn't we?
Yeah, or actually that time of day is great for corporate social responsibility or some type of community give back. So that day has a term. It's called a postprandial dip, and it's a natural part of our circadian rhythm. Like an hour to 2 hours after lunch, you're good at tasks, not great at receiving information. So we would do like OKRs or team building or stuff like that after lunch to fight off that dip and then go back into sessions. There's all this science. Why are we doing things the same way we used to always do them? Why aren't we learning? Why aren't we getting this professional education when we're responsible for teaching people, yet we're not teaching ourselves?
Well, this podcast is called Not the Same as Last Year. So that's exactly it. Why aren't we doing it the same as last year? Okay, so I would like to do like a best case scenario. If we had endless budget and time, and we could really get this right, what should we be doing? If we were a planner, who should we be talking to, employing, or where could we start the best way for people's wellness?
Okay, you don't need endless budget. If you had endless budget, then you can just up level things. You could have like Olympic athletes come in and lead your workouts or whatever, like some organizations do. That's where you can spend your money if you really want. But none of this stuff is expensive if you know how to do it. And we're doing everything we can to try to help teach people how to do it. But so I have 4 things I talk about: mindfulness, movement, meals, and meaning. Start with meals. Meet with your chef. Say, I have this much money. I don't want people to fall asleep after lunch. I want a high protein breakfast. What can we make happen? And just have the conversation. Chefs love new things. They love the opportunity to be creative. And if you give them the freedom, they're usually happy about it. But I will say, don't project your idea of wellness onto the entire crowd. You have to give people agency. Like if somebody wants a brownie or a cookie or a biscuit, they should be able to have that. So offer agency, offer kind of yes and options, whole fruit and cake, right? That's food. Make sure breakfast is high protein. It's really shown to help with brain science in the morning. The other thing, if you're gonna pick certain food items that are brain foods like blueberries or walnuts or salmon or that kind of thing, label the hell out of those things. Like explain why it's good for them. Because as people are going down the line and they're making choices, when you say, oh, walnuts have omega-3 fatty acids, which support brain health, they're like, you'll see when people have the education around it, they take advantage of it.
Well, there's nothing more annoying than giving them the brain food and then going, well, they didn't eat the brain food. They just went for the M&Ms.
Because they didn't know it was brain food, because you didn't tell them. But if you're going to, and that's where the intentionality comes, right? Agenda design is actually what I count as mindfulness. Sure, you can have meditation, but mindfulness is really thinking about the attendee's experience. Read through your agenda and go, would I want to go to this? Am I going to get enough sleep? How long are the sessions? When do they start? How long are your breaks? When does your party end? Can people actually even get 8 hours of sleep if they go to everything you do? Think about your objective as to why you're going and build an agenda that supports your objective. That's what I mean when it comes to mindfulness. None of that costs anything. There's $0 related to that. That is just the time. Movement can get expensive if you let it. There's little things you can do. There's always people standing at the back of the room. We know this. We all know it. Put some high boys back there.
By high boys, I'm just thinking in a UK term, you mean like cocktails, the high tables and the high stool? Yeah.
I didn't even have stools. I just had tables so that people could stand and lean on them or put their lap in it, whatever. But some people have low back pain and they can't sit for a long time. So when they get up and they go to the back of the room, they feel seen because there is a place for them. You want to call me, I can tell you how to do it. But like we had 3 classes a day and a run club each day. And we opened the gym early in Vegas and it cost us like $1,500 total. Bodyweight boot camp, a yoga class, a run club. Our CRO ran the run club because he wanted to do the run club and come to the boot camp because he's him. And like $1,500, that was $500 a day. If you can't find $500 a day, like to impact survey scores, that's a no-brainer. The last one, meaning, we spent a good chunk of money on this. We built prosthetic hands for third world countries and people who had lived in countries they just didn't have access to them. But the entire cost was a write-off here in the States because it was tax deductible because we were donating essentially to a charity. And we spent 2 hours right after lunch during people's postprandial dip. And we did a team building where people got together and they built these hands and they heard a story about where they were going and who they were going to impact and all these things. And it gave everybody the feels and it helped people connect to something bigger than themselves, giving people that sense of pride that their time was well spent away from their family because they made an impact on someone else. The survey results from that were through the roof.
And that can be in simple things. I'm just thinking like a charity I volunteer for.
at Christmas time or Easter time or, particular festive time, you might make little bags or something, and it's just time consuming. But you could just say, like, we're going to put Easter eggs in this bag around this time. And you're telling them who they're doing it for, who's going to see it at the other end. But you can be feeling, I'm doing something valuable. I've stopped and doing something with my hands as opposed to just staring at a screen or at a person. And you are getting this, I've done something good for somebody today, which you don't normally do in your average day to day like that.
And there's a whole thing called a helper's high. Like, it's a real thing. This is all driving that attendee experience so they feel like their time was well spent at the event. And if you're going to do these kinds of things in your classes, tell people this is an opportunity to educate people. And that's a big thing that's missing.
That's a really interesting point. Not everybody does want to come and be healthy. And so if you just made it obsessed with fitness and everybody's got to eat walnuts, and then people who turn up and want their bowl of Cheerios can be very cross. And as you say, they're going to feel disenfranchised and you've taken away their freedoms. And we shouldn't be making one group of people work like one group of people and be like one group of people just because that's the norm. You've got to give everybody the opportunity. I mean, I find it interesting what you were saying about the gym, because obviously you can't always affect that. You can't legislate for hotels to open their gyms early, but it makes a huge difference when they do. If you can talk to your partners and your other suppliers and say, can you do this? I went to an event recently in Spain and the gym and the hotels don't open until 9 a.m., which was crazy to me because that's when you're on site. In the best one in the world, you don't go to the gym at the end of the day after a big event day. You're just too exhausted. You've probably got half an hour in your room before you have to go to another event or an evening event. So I was frustrated by that. They're in the hospitality industry. They should be looking after their guests better.
We need to make hospitality events hospitable. Yeah, we were in Vegas and the gym wasn't scheduled to open until 8 a.m. And I knew we had a large European contingency coming to the West Coast. They were going to be up at 4 probably because jet lag, right? I'm like, what's it going to cost to open the gym 3 hours early? And they're like, we just need an attendant there for 3 extra hours. And it was like $50 an hour. That's it. And then those people then had access to the gym. Just, it's one more thing that's an easy lift just by having that conversation.
It makes people feel seen. It makes them feel included. And it's all part of that. You are trying to make everybody have a good time at your event, not just push everybody in one direction. And that's the way you've got to go. And that's the way we've always done it. We now need to start looking at people as individuals, as human beings who have their own agenda and agency in life. And we shouldn't be making them when they come to our event, well, this is the way it's going to be. Kind of like school. So many events feel like you're still in school, like you're being lectured at, you're fitting to this timetable. You've got to do it our way or tough luck. And I just feel that's so old fashioned. As you say, we know so much more about the science, about the way brains work, about what makes people feel good. It just seems nuts that we're not doing it in events to a much greater degree.
Especially adult learners are not as effective learners as kids. So why aren't we stacking the deck in our favor?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if our objective is to get better scores and people to come back to our events next year, it makes no sense. If you're getting some kind of pushback from senior executives within the organization who maybe traditionally have liked this idea of a busy agenda and everybody lets loose in the evening in the bar, and they feel that you are maybe going a little bit too, I don't know, modern and woke with your attempts to bring in some welfare, some opportunities to work out, some opportunities to be healthy. How do you push back?
I'll share this, which I shared with my executives that help them understand, because executives always think what they have to say is the most important thing on the planet, regardless of if it is or not. And they're like, I need an hour. I need 90 minutes. I need whatever. People still binge watch shows on Netflix and streaming and whatnot. But TV shows are structured in a certain way to hold the attention span very intentionally. So if somebody says they need this much time, relate them to that and say, okay, if you really need 60 minutes, let's break that up. Let's figure out where we take those breaks and what things are going to happen in those 20 minutes to keep people's attention, because human attention spans have changed. The Transportation Safety Agency, the TSA, the airport screeners, they've done all kinds of studies on how long someone can focus on a task. That's why they rotate every few minutes. And that window is between 15 and 30 minutes. Ideally every 15 minutes, so people stay sharp. At the longest, 30 minutes, but no longer than 30 minutes. So if you equate those two examples to your executives and say, this is the psychology behind this, this is real deal, billions of dollars have been spent on these studies. So if you really need 60 minutes, let's figure out how to break it up so that we can ensure that content lands with people and they don't forget 60% of what you're talking about.
I do feel what we've done, though, is in a way is we've thrown the baby out of the bathwater with that, in the sense that people now go, okay, I get it. All my sessions have to be short. Yeah, we got it. But then they don't have to be. It's how you do the session. You can have an hour, as you said, with your fabulous speaker, but you just can't have it with him downloading a lecture at everybody and a gazillion slides. And actually, I feel like sometimes I talk to speakers and they're like a little bit annoyed. They're like, well, I'm an amazing speaker and I've been given 20 minutes. It's a hell of a long way to fly for 20 minutes. And so you feel like that seems to be the one thing that everyone has taken away from this brain-friendly event conversations that we've been having for the last sort of 2 years. Shorter sessions. Tick, done. I'm modern. And it's like, no, you can still be long. You've just got to do your sessions in a way that helps people learn and enjoy for the entire session, not just the first 20 minutes.
Yeah. And content is a whole nother discussion. How people learn, the 4 main ways people learn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and checking all those boxes. And yes, if you're paying $25,000 for a keynote speaker, I would just flat out, I'd use ChatGPT, ask it, what are the 4 primary ways that people learn? And then I would say, okay, you're booked for an hour. We'll let you have an hour, but please tell me how you present across all 4 of these things so that they then are prepared to ensure that your audience is fully engaged for the duration of that hour if you're going to go that route. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. People can pay attention for an hour. Like, look at movies. Movies are still 90 minutes, 2 hours.
They're getting longer.
But they break things up and their timing is there. And there's different scenes and there's cutaways and all these different things that engage different parts of the mind. So I'm not saying that you have to present that way, but if it's a lecture, keep it short.
Sure. And then workshop or whatever else it is that
Right.
does it.
It's the other thing is, so another example I'll use is our number 1 sales rep at the previous company. He came to me because this event happened to be in Vegas that I've referred to a few times. He came to me and said, hey, what's the deal with the 10 a.m. start time? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we're not starting at 8. He goes, I don't have to go to the keynotes because I'll sleep through it. And I was like, yeah, you have to come to the keynotes. And he goes, oh, so I guess I can party and come to the keynotes? And I was like, I mean, I'm not going to agree with you, but theoretically, yes. And the second day he came to me, he's like, this is great. He goes, I was out till midnight, 1 a.m. I still got a full night's sleep. I had breakfast. I even got some of my emails done. Not everyone wants to work out. I get that. But what you're doing is giving people the opportunities to make their own choices and to experience that event the way they want to experience it. So sure, there might be an executive who's like, well, we always done it this way. We should do it this way, blah, blah. And you can bring the science to them. But it's really just about choices. When you put optional on the agenda, you give people permission, expressed permission to not go. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the whole thing is optional, especially if you buy a ticket. But when it's an internal meeting and you put optional on something, the people who aren't into that, the introvert whose battery is low, the extrovert whose battery is low, anybody who just is like, I'm not in the mood to deal with that, they can go home with peace in their heart because they know it's optional.
It's the whole FOMO is great to get them there, but you don't want them to be feeling FOMO and anxious and overexhausted all the way through.
No, give them JOMO. It's the joy of missing out.
Well, I do that more and more the older I get. Everybody was sharing pictures, weren't they, of seeing the Northern Lights, bizarrely, in my hometown. You could see. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know. But then when I went to bed on the Saturday night, knowing that they were probably going to appear again, I was like, I don't care. I'm really glad I'm going to bed. That's JOMO, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you give people that permission, they love it. It makes them happy. It makes them feel seen.
A huge thanks to David for talking to us so openly and sharing so much. I love his passion for wellness and how he's all about putting the attendees' health and well-being first at events. And of course, being able to show how great it is for business is just the ideal icing on the cake. To learn more from David and what he talks about, I highly suggest you check out his podcast, Return on Wellness, and also connect with him at LinkedIn at David T. Stevens. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and share and leave a review. And until next time, keep challenging the status quo and remember, never settle for the same old at your events.
And there you have it. I hope you're inspired to revolutionise the attendee experience at your next event. Ready to dive deeper? Download your free guide, 5 ways to elevate your attendee experience without breaking the bank. The link is in the show notes. Subscribe to Not the Same as Last Year podcast, connect with me, Clare Forestier, on LinkedIn, or visit my YouTube channel for even more tips and insights to make your events a hit with your attendees. Don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback is going to fuel my mission. Stay tuned next week for another episode packed with inspiring ideas and practical strategies to put your attendee first.